Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know, from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars, topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
Everybody, peace. As you guys know, Sean Cottle, host of the GSMC Basketball Podcast Show, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. What a pleasure it is to be here with you guys. We got an amazing show for you guys today. We are going to be discussing some pretty interesting news going on around the NBA world and the latest trade updates involving Damian Lillard. And we're also going to be discussing some breaking news coming out of the WNBA with Breanna Stewart being named this year's MVP. And we're also be previewing some Game 2 action that's slated for tonight. But before we get into any of that, if you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button as well, so you guys can stay updated all of our latest content. And be sure to follow us on Patreon as well. You can do so by going to patreon.com, click on the search bar, and typing in GSMC Sports Network. That way you can get access to all of our exclusive content that we post daily. And if you'd like to support our network and our company, you can do so by following the link in the ticker below. streamelements.com/GSMC Sports Network /tip. Once again, it's streamelements.com/GSMC Sports Network /tip. Listen, none of this is possible without you guys, the fans. So it's such an honor and pleasure to share my insights on my thoughts on the game of basketball with you guys. And it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm glad you guys are here with me as well. And yes, hi, Haino Wasim. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Welcome to the show. But you know, guys, let's go get right into it, okay? So, as you guys know, recent reports came out today involving Damian Lillard and some updates on his trade request or his decision to attempt to come out of Portland, but recent reports have come out and stated that the Toronto Raptors are now the front runners to land Damian Lillard now. And Toronto is a little bit of an anomaly. It's a team that it's a destination that, quite frankly, came out of nowhere, knowing that Lillard's preferred destination spots were Miami. That's really pretty much it. And this destination comes out of nowhere, and it's probably because Toronto at this point in time is really the only team that's willing to trade that much to pick up a Lillard. That might change as the season starts, but there's no incentive. There's no incentive at this point in the year to trade for Damian Lillard, especially if you're a Miami team, or if you're Philly, or even if you're Milwaukee. There's no incentive to start to make a trade right now. And if you're Portland, there's no rush either. Damian's still under contract, so there's no rush to get him out of there. But the question that arises is, what even if Dame was to get traded to Toronto, does that make Toronto a championship contending team? And the answer is no, it does not, because any package that you would need to give in order to get Damian Lillard has to involve either Pascal Siakam or Scotty Barnes. And if you trade either one of those guys from Toronto, you're no different than you now officially become the Portland Trailblazers of the Eastern Conference. There's no incentive to get to picking up a Damian Lillard if you have to give up Pascal or Scotty Barnes, because you're not a championship contending team. You're not even the fourth or fifth best team in the Eastern Conference by trading away one of those guys and picking up Damian Lillard. So there's no incentive basketball wise for getting a Damian Lillard. Now you could argue that Damian Lillard might bring more fans into Toronto or might increase advertisements or marketability, but Toronto's in an international market, and they get great fan turnout without having a superstar. So is having Dame there even necessary? Especially at what you have to go. You have to give up at least, like I said, either Pascal or Scotty Barnes, plus at least 2 first rounders. I'd imagine at least 2 first rounders. And so there's no incentive if you're Toronto to trade for Damian Lillard. And if you're the thing that I always want to bring up is that Damian Lillard stated that he wants to be a Blazer for life, right? And this was him about three years ago before he signed that extension, and now he wants to play for winning. He says he wants to play for a championship or get traded to a championship contending team. Listen, I don't agree with it. The notion, the concept of being loyal to an organization or a franchise for your entire career, it's just not plausible. It's not realistic. This is a business, right? There's no loyalty involved. You're making the decisions that are best or most beneficial for you as an asset. And people would like to bring, Kobe was loyal to the Lakers, and Dirk was loyal to Dallas, and Tim was loyal to San Antonio. Listen, there's got to be incentive, right? Because Kobe, in 05, from 05 to 07, we all know that Kobe wanted to get out of the Lakers, get out of Los Angeles. He publicly talked about on a radio call or on a radio interview one time about him wanting to play in Chicago. So you can't use the Kobe Bryant example. And with Dallas and Dirk, listen, Dallas is known for marketing international players, and when Dirk got there, he had consistent success when it came to making the playoffs. So there was no reason for him to want to leave to play for championship winning team. And then we all know San Antonio and Tim Duncan, their consistent success in the multiple dynasties that they had during Tim Duncan's career there. So there's no incentive for him to leave. And so when it comes to Damian Lillard, you talk about wanting to play for one franchise for your entire career, fine. That's cool. If that's what you want, you do that. But don't commit to that extension and then come back here and say, well, no, I actually want to play for a championship team. And you don't talk about you wanting, don't speak about this concept of loyalty, which isn't even real for any player. No one should want to be loyal to one team. But don't talk about wanting to be loyal and you want to win a championship in Portland and you're here committed to this. But then realistically, you just want to get traded. And the way I see this whole thing, how I truly see this is that I don't think Dame wants to get traded. I don't think Dame really wants to leave Portland. Just quite frankly, because I think he's perfectly comfortable with where he's at in his career and where he'll be slated at, and with him being the guy in Portland. I think he's comfortable with that, which is fine. That's what you want. But don't try to fake and seem like you actually want to get traded and you actually want to get out of Portland and you want to play for a championship team just to make it seem like you're concerned with winning. And I'm saying you're not concerned with winning. I'm not saying that. But don't put this facade on. But that's my perspective on this. And even if Dame is to get traded, is he comfortable with being not being the guy? So let's just run down a couple of trade options, right? So if he gets traded to Miami, that's really about the only place where if they were to win a championship, it would be Dame's team, right? But say he gets traded to Milwaukee, that's not going to be Dame's team. That's Giannis. That's going to be Giannis' team still. If he gets traded to Philly, that's going to be Embiid's team. That's going to be Joel Embiid's team. If somebody gets traded to Boston, that's Jason Tatum's team, though I do think Damian Lillard is better than Jason Tatum right now. That's Jason Tatum's team. So and is Dame comfortable with no longer being, in terms of marketability, the guy, the number one guy? And that's something that only he can answer. But I don't think Dame really wants to get traded. I don't really think he wants to leave Portland. I think he likes where he's at, which is fine. But let me know what you guys think about all this. By the way, so I don't think this trade's gonna go through it, and I still don't think Dame's gonna get traded anywhere. That's just because there's no incentive, especially to get traded right now. There's no incentive to trade him if you're Portland, I just don't think he's gonna get traded. I think he's gonna stay in Portland. But let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think that Damian Lillard will end up getting traded out of Portland? And where do you think he'll likely be traded to? Toronto, Milwaukee, Boston, Miami, Philly? What are some destinations that Dame can get traded to? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. But in our next topic, guys, we are going to be discussing some recent breaking news coming out of the WNBA, and you're not going to miss any of that, so be sure to stick around. We'll be right back. All right, everybody, welcome back. In case you missed the first segment of our show, we talked about Damian Lillard's recent updates in the trade rumor mill about him possibly being traded to Toronto, and Toronto are now the front runners to possibly landing Damian Lillard. And I share my thoughts on that insight and on how I feel about that and how I view that entire trade scenario. But in this next topic, guys, we're going to be discussing some WNBA action and some stuff that's it's been going on in WNBA, and some breaking news, actually, and that is Breanna Stewart being named WNBA MVP. And if you remember, we talked about, this maybe about 2 weeks ago, we discussed Breanna Stewart being named the AP Associated Press's WNBA Most Outstanding Player, and we talked about what that could possibly represent moving forward for the WNBA MVP award. And I talked about how it wasn't much of an indicator because remember last year, Breanna Stewart also won Most Outstanding Player, but A'ja Wilson ended up winning the MVP. And this is very interesting news coming out of the NBA or WNBA because this was the closest MVP race amongst three players in WNBA history between Breanna Stewart, A'ja Wilson, and Alyssa Thomas. And to some people it comes a bit of a surprise because A'ja Wilson led the league in points and in rebounds this year, and her team had the best overall record in the WNBA. But very interesting right here that Breanna Stewart won the award. But I can't say though in this instance that there was not a wrong choice. Like I said, if I had a vote, I would have voted for A'ja Wilson. But voting for either three of these players, Breanna Stewart, A'ja Wilson, and Alyssa Thomas, you would not have been wrong about either of these players because, to start with with Alyssa Thomas, we know what Connecticut went through this offseason with Jonquel Jones to the New York Liberty, and then Bree Jones getting hurt early in the season. A lot of people writing them off. All right, and any playoff chances they might have, just writing them off completely. But Alyssa Thomas managed to average nearly triple-double, set the single season record for most assists in the season and most triple-doubles in the season, while leading her team in all three statistical categories: point, rebounds, and assists. Like I said, A'ja Wilson had a 50-point game this season. Like I said, led the league in points and rebounds. Her team had the best record. A'ja Wilson also won Defensive Player of the Year. And like I said, Breanna Stewart was second in the league in points. Breanna Stewart was second in the league in points, third in rebounding. Best record in the Eastern Conference. There were so you couldn't go wrong with either decision, with going either direction with the WNBA MVP vote. But interestingly enough, for the second time in WNBA history, the winner of the MVP did not get the most first place votes. Actually, that was Alyssa Thomas. So Breanna Stewart had 20 first place votes, Alyssa Thomas had 23 first place votes, and A'ja Wilson had 17 first place votes. But wow, one reason that A'ja Wilson probably got so few first place votes because the talent level was it was so high on the team. She was playing with the likes of Chelsea Gray and Kelsey Plum and Jackie Young and Candace Parker before she got hurt. And that's something I talk about all the time. Even yesterday on the show was, this lineup in Vegas is going to go down as the best assembled roster in WNBA history. And Vegas right now has the best backcourt of Chelsea Gray, Kelsey Plum, Jackie Young in WNBA history. So I'm quite certain that the voters took that into account, and and that took some points away, or took some votes away from her. But very interesting though, Alyssa Thomas got the most first place votes. I find that quite intriguing. But Alyssa Thomas, like I said, I see nothing wrong with either of these players. If Alyssa Thomas was win MVP, I would see no problem with it. If A'ja Wilson was to win MVP, I would not see a problem with that either. And Breanna Stewart winning MVP, I see no problem with that either. Like I talked about a couple weeks ago, listen, WNBA is in a great space because it's the most talent, top to bottom in the league that's ever been in the league since its inception. And this is great for the WNBA. It's great for storyline, great for narratives. Like I talked about a month and a half ago, how the WNBA needs to create more storylines and needs to do a better job of marketing those storylines so it can draw more intrigue from the fans. Because at the end of the day, sports is all about narrative. It's all about storytelling. It's all about entertainment, because that's all it is. And I think this is going to be great for the WNBA, man. It just adds to the legacy. It adds to the storyline. It adds to the ever-going soap opera that is kind of like the dynamic between Breanna Stewart and A'ja Wilson. And that's what the WNBA should ride it. It should ride this out, man. And it's no mistake. So A'ja Wilson won last year, Breanna Stewart won this year. If you have to ask me personally, I do believe it's part of the narrative in WNBA formulated that sort of premise, that precept in terms of saying, maybe swaying the voters to say, hey, let's vote for Breanna Stewart this year. I can't confirm that, but just based on what I've seen, since watching basketball, since watching sports, and understanding how the professional aspect of things, the business works, that wouldn't surprise me if the WNBA league offices and people of those sorts kind of swayed the people that vote, the editors and the writers, to sway them. They swayed them into voting for Breanna Stewart, just to make the narrative more enticing to the fans. To say, oh, well, A'ja Wilson won last year, Breanna Stewart won this year, going to meet up in the WNBA finals, who was truly deserving the MVP. That narrative, that dynamic, man, it's good for the WNBA. It's good for the marketability. But let me know what you guys think. Was Breanna Stewart deserving of the WNBA MVP? Leave your thoughts in the comment section. Who do you think should have won? But with that being said, guys, in our next segment, we're going to be discussing our preview for some Game 2 matchups in the WNBA playoffs that are slated for tonight, actually. So be sure to stick around. You're not going to miss any of that. We will be right back. Everybody, welcome back. These are the first two segments of our show. We talked about the recent updates on the Damian Lillard trade saga and where he'll possibly be getting traded to. And we talked about Toronto appearing as the front runner to land Damian Lillard. And we also discussed Breanna Stewart winning the WNBA MVP and what that means for the WNBA as a whole and how the WNBA can use that to better market themselves. And in this segment, guys, we're going to be talking about Game 2 preview between the Aces and between the Liberty and the Sun. But before we get into that, guys, if you haven't already, be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well, so you guys can stay up to date on all of our latest content that we post daily. And be sure to follow us on Patreon as well. You can do so by following the link. You can do so by going to patreon.com. Click on the search bar and type in GSMC Sports Network. That way you can get access to all of our exclusive content that we post daily. And if you'd like to support our network and our company, you can do so by following the link in the ticker below. It's streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Once again, it's streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. None of this is possible if you guys are fans, so we're so grateful for all the love and support that you show us, and it's an honor to be here on this platform with you guys. And if you haven't already, be sure to check out the other shows on GSMC Sports Network: the GSMC Baseball Podcast, GSMC College Football Podcast, GSMC and the GSMC NFL Podcast. All of our hosts provide great content, and they're some of the best in the business, and it's an honor to work alongside them. So, that being said, I'm going to do a quick matchup preview between the Connecticut Sun and the New York Liberty. Game slated for 8 o'clock tonight, Eastern Standard Time. As you guys know, the Connecticut Sun won Game 1 in convincing fashion. Matchup predictor actually has New York with a 69% chance of winning this game. Home game for New York, as you guys know. And like we talked about yesterday, one thing I was impressed with that Connecticut did really well was pushing tempo against the Liberty, and did a great job of making the guards of the Liberty work on defense. And we saw Letitia Heidemann had, I believe, 12 points, and Rebecca Allen had 17 points, the guards for the Sun. And they, it tells me they were pushing, and I saw the game. They were pushing in transition. They were hunting for their shot. And they made Courtney Vandersloot and Sabrina Ionescu work on the defensive end, which tired them out when they got back in the offensive end, and they were less efficient than what they normally are. And that's going to be the key. That's going to be the key for Connecticut's success. Because that also takes pressure off of Alyssa Thomason and DeWanna Bonner. Takes pressure off of them to have to create on every possession. And if you can attack those guards for Liberty defensively and tire them out, wear them out, it's going to bode well for Connecticut. And they surprisingly won the rebounding battle, and that's always a key to success. We talked about the biggest keys to success for any team. The three statistical categories are the turnover margin, the rebounding margin, and the field goal percentage. And Connecticut won all three of those categories. So, that's why they were able to win in convincing fashion. But for this game, I do believe that the Liberty will win this game. I think that New York is going to do a better job of rebounding than they did yesterday. I think they're going to bring in another. Instead of having two crash, I think they're going to bring in a third player to crash the boards, whether it be another guard or their wing. But they're going to bring in another player to crash the boards on all the shots. And I think the game plan is going to be attack early, attack often, and more. The ball stuck at times in the New York offense, on Sunday, and I think one of the keys that New York is going to address after watching film is making sure the ball doesn't stick and attacking early in the shot clock, attacking early in transition, running more of your secondary breaks. They didn't really run much of that on Sunday. I think it's going to be the key to success for New York, attacking early and getting multiple rotations of the ball in the offensive end. And I think also Breanna Stewart shot poorly last game. I think she went 4-12 last game. If I'm wrong about that one, you guys let me know. And so I think that's going to be the key to success for the Liberty. And I do think they will win this game. I think they'll win this game by a score of 87-79, and the series go back to Connecticut, tied at 1. But let me know what you guys see in the comment section. How do you guys think this game is going to turn out? Do you think Connecticut is going to go up 2-0, or do you think the New York Liberty are going to tie the series after tonight? I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about that. But in our next segment, guys, we are going to be discussing the other Game 2 matchup coming on tonight between the Aces and the Wing. So be sure to stick around for all that, guys. You're not going to miss it. We'll be right back. Hey everybody, welcome back. In case you missed the first 2 segments of our show, we discussed the recent news involving Damian Lillard and him possibly being traded to the Toronto Raptors, with the Toronto Raptors appearing as the front runners to land Damian Lillard. We also discussed Breanna Stewart winning the WNBA's MVP award and what that means for the WNBA and how they can use that as better marketability for their league as a whole. And we also discussed our Game 2 preview for the Connecticut Sun and the Liberty for Game 2. And in this segment, guys, we're going to be discussing a Game 2 matchup preview between the Las Vegas Aces and the Dallas Wings. And before we get into that, though, guys, be sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button so you guys can stay up to date on all of our latest content. And be sure to follow us on Patreon as well. That way you can gain access to all of our exclusive content that we post daily. So, that being said, guys, let's get right into this real quick. Quick matchup preview between Dallas Wings and Vegas Aces, Game 2. As you guys know, Vegas won the Game 1 matchup on Sunday in convincing fashion. A'ja Wilson had 30 points and 17 rebounds. Kelsey Plum also added in 25 points. And it was a dominant win for the Aces. Excuse me, though they didn't start to pull away until the third quarter. I thought Dallas did a poor job of getting ball movement and had a lot of what you call my bad plays, or or lapses in error and judgment on the defensive end. And I think that's because they were trying to overcompensate people were trying to overcompensate on the defensive end for the lack of touch they were getting on the offensive end. They did a poor job of pushing the transition, which leads to them getting easier shots. I mean, we got to remember that this Dallas team was 3rd in the league in scoring. But watching the game, it told me that Dallas can play with the Aces, but they need to play for a full 40 minutes. They can't have any lapses in judgment, and quite frankly, no team can when you're playing Las Vegas. But this Dallas team is capable of playing with Vegas, but they have to do a better job of controlling the boards as well. That's going to limit not only second chance opportunities for Vegas, but it's going to limit their opportunities to get out in transition, which is something that Vegas likes to do. And Dallas needs to do a better job of, like I said, getting rotation on the ball, getting more ball movement. And a lot of the players in Dallas, especially towards the end of the game when they were attacking, they weren't necessarily attacking to play make, but they were only attacking to score. And so, Vegas, a team likes to run a lot of zone, and they run a lot of different variations of defense. They like to switch it a lot, but they play a lot of zone. And you get into the paint and everyone collapses. So when you go into the paint and you're about to go up, you got 3 people on you, and Dallas needs to look to play make or look to be aggressive and make the right read as opposed to just attacking a score. And that's when they're in the zone matchups. But I think that Dallas needs to attack early when finding that Vegas is in man, and they need to get more rotation of the ball when they're in zone. And the typical stuff that you learn at a young age playing basketball. But they can get more passing, more ball movement, more weak side movement. And there's a lot of stagnation, a lot of players just standing still, especially on the weak side, because the ball's not moving. So you get more ball movement from Dallas. Then I think that opens up the diversity for the offense, and it makes Vegas work on the defensive end. But if I'm Dallas watching Game 1, I would say, man, we beat ourselves, but we're more than capable of playing with this team. So if you're Dallas, you have confidence. You have confidence going into this game. But if for my prediction, I have Vegas win this game again by a score of 90-85. I think it'll be a close game, but I think Vegas will pull away, and the series will be going back to Dallas with Vegas up 2-0. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section. How do you guys think this game is going to turn out? Do you think Vegas is going to go up 2-0, or do you think Dallas will be able to tie the series? Share your thoughts in the comment section. But That's it for our show today, guys. What a wonderful show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you'd like to support our network and our company, you can do so by following the link in the ticker below. It's streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Once again, it's streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. None of this is possible without you guys, the fans, so it's just an honor to have this platform to share with you guys my thoughts and insights on the game of basketball. And if you haven't already, be sure to check out the GSMC Baseball Podcast, GSMC College Football Podcast, GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast, and the GSMC Info Podcast as well. And we'll be back again same time tomorrow, guys, at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And until then, continue to stay safe, be vigilant, make smart decisions, and until next time, guys, peace.